Hello, good afternoon. This is Dr. Martin Sellers, Dean of the School of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, coming to you from the beautiful campus of Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate, Tennessee. When I say beautiful, I really mean that. I was outside a few minutes ago. The temperature is right. The atmosphere is right. The grass has been cut. It smells like fresh grass. It's great. And in fact, we were thinking about not having a program today. We were going to sit outside and have a picnic, but decided instead to come to you and talk with you about a really important subject, and that is the Appalachian region, Appalachian Studies, and why our region is so important to the culture of America. We have a lot of things to talk about, but before I go forward, let me bring on Gary, who wants to give the support for the university.
Support for this program is made possible by Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate, Tennessee. Further information on academics, campus life, educational programs, admissions, and financial aid, and much, much more, you can find at www.lmunet.edu. Thank
you, Gary. Appreciate that. We have an excellent program for you today. We will be talking about the Appalachian region. We're also going to talk about geography. Now, if I say geology once in a while, it's only because of my brain kind of affixes itself in both areas. But we're going to ask the question, how does geology affect geography? That's always a good one. We're going to talk about these subjects in a few minutes. But before I go forward, we will have our guests introduce themselves in a minute. That's Dr. Michael Toomey, Director of Appalachian Studies, and also the Assistant Dean for Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. And we also have with us Dr. Jesse Gilley, who is the Director of our Geography program. We will be talking a bit about the Geography program here shortly. Let me say a thing or two about LMU. LMU has grown, as you know, over the years, for the last 10 years, really, by leaps and bounds, if you will. There's just so much going on. It would take hours and hours to review everything. But a few of the things I'd like to mention, if you're not already aware, we have 9 schools now here at Lincoln Memorial University. Let me run through what they are. Allied Health Sciences, the School of Business, the Carter Moyers School of Education, the School of Math and Sciences, the Kaler School of Nursing, the DeBusk College of Osteopathic Medicine, the Duncan School of Law, which is, as you know, is located in Knoxville, and the College of Veterinary Medicine. We have also, the 9th school is the School of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. In the School of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, we have available for learning purposes 10 major programs, and often the way I explain this is the programs we have in Arts, Humanities, Social Sciences is everything that's not math and science, if that makes sense. We have programs like Appalachian Studies, which we're going to be talking about today, art, media communications, in other words, how do I become a television celebrity, English, we now have a MFA program in creative writing, geography, history, military science studies, music, philosophy, religion, psychology, theater arts, criminology, political science, and several others I'm sure I'm forgetting. And I don't want to forget our Arts in the Gap program, which is a series of events, performances, activities, workshops scattered throughout the entire year, mostly, though, concentrated in June and July for the benefit of the Appalachian region. We're not quite John C. Campbell, we're not quite Berea, but we have a lot going for us in the Arts in the Gap program, and there is a web page available to you that you can look through to see the myriad of programs that we do have available and being scheduled as we speak, which makes me want to say also, any of you that are interested in attending LMU and any of these wonderful programs, the first thing to do is to take a look at the webpage, www.lmunet.edu, and just click on admissions, and you'll find a plethora of information about all the programs and in all the schools that we have available. I would like to mention, too, that we have an excellent theater program, excellent music program. The play this semester is an Arthur Miller play, The Crucible. The students are in Duke Hall as we speak, and they are busy learning all their parts. I don't know how they do it. I could never be on stage. I can't remember my middle name sometimes, but somehow they remember all those lines, and it just tickles me to death. And we have an excellent program. So please take a look at the webpage. If you're interested in seeing the Crucible, it's free to faculty and students. I believe there's a $5 admission for those in the community. But if you come and see me, I'll get you a free ticket. I promise. I'm over there in Avery Hall. You come see me, I'll give you a free ticket. That also brings to mind, I want to mention that out here in radio world, some of you who are listening might be interested in joining one or more of these programs. You might be back from the military and have available to you the veterans benefits. You might be someone who thinks he or she doesn't have any money and can't go to school. If you come and talk to our financial aid people, there are programs and grants and scholarships that I can't even expand on right here, that I don't even know about, that I'm assured of exist, that can help you find your success and find your way to a dream that you have. So please don't delay. Come over here to LMU. If you want to come on campus, just come to the middle of campus and open your window and ask the first person you see walking by, where do I find financial aid and admissions, and they'll point you to the DAR building. I think that's the Daughters of the American Republic. Is that what that stands for? DAR building, right here in the very dead center of campus. I do want to mention, too, we have excellent athletic programs. LMU is an amazing place. We do everything, and we do more than most. We now have 10 men's and women's sport programs. We have our newest program is track and field. We also have lacrosse, which started up, I want to say, 2 years ago. We also have, I was surprised to hear about these two. We have beach volleyball, and if you saw any of the Olympics, there was a lot of beach volleyball. Evidently, Americans are big into it. And we have bowling. We have a bowling program, yes. And somebody from Alaska who is here on scholarship, if I'm not mistaken, who is going to be in our varsity bowling program. And so, and I don't want to fail to mention, I try to mention this every time we have a segment, that we are an excellent basketball school. We went to the final two, if you will, and I'm not going to mention the name of that school that beat us, Augustana. They're great, though. They've been great for many years. We are a Division II school, but we went to the final two, and we're very proud of that, and very proud of our new athletic director. I shouldn't say new. Matt Green's been here now. He's going on two to 3 years, and came on the program last week, as a matter of fact, and told us all about things that they're doing in athletics, that programs that we have that I wasn't aware of. Not that I need to be aware of everything. So anyway, I want to mention all of that to you and ask you to please go on the webpage for Lincoln Memorial University here in Harrogate. Beautiful campus. I don't know that I would want to send my son and daughter anywhere else than here. In fact, one of them came here, so I'm glad of that. We also have on campus J. Frank White, our academy. Currently, I believe it's 4th through high school. I had 3 children go through J. Frank White when they were here, and all the better for it. And they do an excellent job at J. Frank White. In fact, someone could go currently, we're thinking about, if I'm not mistaken, I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag, having 1st through 4th here shortly in a couple of years, either next year or the year after. And if that comes to happen, and even now, if somebody comes here, they can start 4th grade and finalize their doctoral degree as a medical doctor. And how many years, Gary, you're a mathematician, how many years would that take? A lot more years than I can even count, but that would be quite a few years. But one could go, I want to say cradle to, not that a medical doctor getting a terminal degree in as a osteopathic doctor would be the grave part of it, but cradle to grave in a number of years and be fully LMU, am I right? And that would be something I'd love to see. Anyway, what we want to talk about today is Appalachian Studies. We have a program here at LMU. It started up, a number of years ago, just in the same time, at the same time that a number of the Appalachian Studies programs died off in some of our surrounding universities. And we have two guests with us who would like to speak to us and have a number of questions for in that regard. Let me ask them to introduce themselves. Dr. Michael Toomey, Director of Appalachian Studies, also Assistant Dean at Arts at the School of Arts, Humanities, Social Sciences. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself? And
Sure. I'm starting my 9th year here at Lincoln Memorial University. I teach Introduction to the Life and Legacy of Abraham Lincoln, most of the time, I guess, 4 sections of that. But I also teach a survey course in U.S. history, upper-level courses in frontier history, Tennessee history, and, of course, Appalachian history, a few other things, special topics I throw in from time to time. I'm a native Tennessean. I was born in Memphis, raised in Chattanooga. I've lived in Knoxville since 1982. Came up here to see the World's Fair, and I never did leave. And finished up at UT in 1991 with my doctorate, and I've thankfully been able to stay in this beautiful area the whole time.
Excellent. I didn't know you were born in Memphis. I thought you were from Knoxville. So you're a Memphisean.
That's
right?
Exactly right. Memphisean.
Memphisean, there you are. Been around. And Dr. Gill, you want to tell us about yourself?
I teach geography here at LMU, and I am a product of Appalachia. I grew up in the heart of the southern coal fields in West Virginia and grew up in McDowell County, one of the poorest counties in the country, actually. So I really have a heart for Appalachia, and I've seen all different sides of Appalachia. And I teach, I kind of sprinkle in Appalachian topics in my classes. Geography is very diverse, from physical geography, where we talk about how mountains are formed and rivers and such, and then we teach physical geography, or human geography as well. So we get into things like economics and culture, and I try to teach my students a lot about the world, but also about their home, because a lot of people know, they see the world on TV, but they don't know a lot about their backyard. So I try to bring that to my students.
Do you find, just as a quick aside before we take a break, do you find that a lot of students have not ventured very far from our region, so that you have to go into some explanation about the Midwest and the Northwest and the Northeast and so on? Is that the case or no?
Well, here at LMU, we have students from all over. So, but a lot of the local students haven't necessarily traveled. Though occasionally you get ones like myself who had been in the military, and that's how I saw the country, just from being stationed at different places. So, and that's actually one of those things that got me to love geography.
I see. Was
being around the country, meeting people with different ideas, seeing different landscapes, and brought me back to my studies.
Well, it'll be interesting to hear a little bit more about social geography, because I think a lot of us think of mountains and hills and valleys and lakes and so on, and land formations. So I'd like to hear more about that. We're going to take a quick break, though. Thank you all for listening. This is American Culture, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. We'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you.
There is a jewel in the crown right here in our Cumberland Mountains, and it's the Abraham Lincoln Library and Museum, located here on the historic campus of LMU. It houses one of the top 5 Lincoln and Civil War collections in the entire world, and it's right here in our own backyard, located here in Harrogate, Tennessee, at the main entrance of LMU's campus. For more information, their number is 423-869-6235. And on the World Wide Web at lmunet.edu/museum.
This message is for all of you sitting in the passenger seat. And apologies if it gets a little uncomfortable, but how does it feel to be at the mercy of someone who thinks a random text is more important than your life? Someone who takes their eyes off the road while speeding along in a 3-ton hunk of steel. Freaky, right? Well, why not just ask them to stop? Or better yet, volunteer to text for them. It might be a little awkward, but believe me, you'll live.
Learn more at StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Here we are back again with American Culture, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. Thank you all for listening in. Our edition today is Appalachian Studies and Geography, and what I think of as the homeland. I live out here in Speedwell. It's about, it must be about 18 miles away down here on Old 63. And if you're not from this area, if you listen in from, by the way, we live stream worldwide, so I'd like to think somebody's listening in from China, from Brazil, from Afghanistan, wherever. If you're listening from far away and you don't know about Harrogate, Tennessee to us is the middle of the world. It's gorgeous out here, and we have lots of programs at Lincoln Memorial University. This is one of the safest campuses that anyone can go to. Now, here's an interesting fact. We are one of the safest campuses that has a great deal to do. It's not like we're out on an island somewhere, nothing to do. If we talk to these students, they can't figure out how to get to 10 things at once. On the weekends, we have buses going down Knoxville. I was told a little while ago we got a bus going to Ohio there's a great big mall up there somewhere that I'm not familiar with, of course, but we got things going back and forth. So much to do, makes my head spin. So, and with our athletic programs, there's something to do, 5 things to do every day. And here we are in Harrogate, where it's pleasant, quiet, and very safe. Want to talk about Appalachian Studies, though, and Dr. Toomey, I'm going to put you on the firing line here for a minute. Tell us, what is Appalachian Studies? Why does it exist? Why is it important? Can you help us out with that?
It started about, I'd say, the mid-1960s as a subfield of history. And other disciplines as well, but there was a growing awareness that there just simply were a lot of stereotypes out there about Appalachia, a lot of incorrect information, and a lot of just flat-out speculation about what Appalachia is. And so you begin to see then several scholarly articles and journals appear. You begin to see a more of an academic focus on understanding what Appalachian Studies is. And an awareness of Appalachia as a region, of course, has been around forever, but in terms of actually understanding what it is from an academic perspective, it starts in about the 1970s. And we focus on history of Appalachia, the culture of Appalachia, environmental issues associated with Appalachia, and some of the crafts, traditions, and just we go in a lot of different directions in trying to look at Appalachian Studies.
Let me ask you this, because you're heading down the pathway that I want to go on. What is the region that we're talking about? Is it just right here in Knoxville, or where is the region of Appalachia?
Well, it's defined by the Appalachian Regional Commission as 13 states, that portions of 13 states, only one of which, Jesse's homeland, is West Virginia, is actually entirely in Appalachia. But other states, and some that you probably wouldn't expect to be in Appalachia, Mississippi, for example, is part of Appalachia as far as the Appalachian Regional Commission is concerned.
Now, that wouldn't be the whole state. It would be the
No, just a portion.
Yeah. Okay.
Just like Tennessee, for example, only the eastern portion. But see, therein lies another problem, because Appalachia is part of several different states, and so traditionally, Tennessee, just to use our own example here, if you're in West Tennessee, you really have a very limited understanding of what East Tennessee is like. It's 400 miles away, and it's a whole different culture. It's a whole different orientation, a whole different economy, and it's the Appalachian culture. And the state capital can't necessarily respond to the problems that exist in East Tennessee, because they're focused on a different culture in Middle Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And that's nobody's fault. That's just a matter of geography. Mm-hmm. Same would be true of North Carolina. Mm-hmm. The western part of the state is very different from the section of the state where the capital is located. Mm-hmm. So Appalachia has had that problem throughout its history, trying to find some way to have the people who can solve their problems really understand their problems.
Is the unique part of this, and Dr. Gilly, you can jump in on this anytime, is the uniqueness of Appalachia, is it the mountains? Is that what makes it unique, would you say?
Well, that has a lot to do with it, especially if you think hundreds of years ago. It was difficult to travel, so the Appalachian were in different states were often what people from the urban areas in those states thought of as the backwaters. And so, like Dr. Toomey said, except for West Virginia, which being in the mountains was a part of how it became a state, because it was a backwater of Virginia in the minds of many Virginians. So yeah, certainly those mountains influence culture.
So here at LMU we have a minor in this area of study, right?
Right.
How can you talk a little bit, Dr. Toomey, about the minor, some of the courses?
We have a course, History of Appalachia. We have a geography course, the Geography of Appalachia, environmental issues in Appalachia, Appalachian literature, Appalachian music, Appalachian art, and then we ask the student, after they've had those courses, to do a research class that allows them to focus on any issue that they're interested in and pursuing in more depth and prepare a capstone paper for that. But our feeling is that as a minor, Appalachian Studies can really contribute to any major on campus. And this goes back to about 10 or 15 years ago when a lot of colleges were asking themselves, how does Appalachian Studies really fit best into the curriculum? How does it best complement everything else that's happening? And a lot of schools are moving toward having Appalachian Studies serve as a minor. So if you're, say, for example, a business major and you have an Appalachian Studies minor, you go for your job interview and let that fact slip out. I think it's going to help you with the interview. It may not guarantee you a job necessarily, but any advantage these days when you're in the interview is going to be a good thing. And so the fact that you understand your region, that you have a minor in Appalachian Studies, should suggest to a prospective employer that you've taken the time to actually try and learn something about the place where you're going to be working.
So we don't have a major. Why don't we have a major in Appalachian Studies?
Well, we did at one time, and a lot of schools have, and it's not outside of the realm of possibility. We could consider that again, of course, but a major really does focus, to a certain extent, decrease your job opportunities a little bit, just to put it quite bluntly. I don't know that there's a lot of job opportunities out there for somebody with a major in Appalachian Studies, unless you really want to pursue push your own prospects really hard. And of course that could happen, and a lot of schools do that. But it was our thinking that Appalachian Studies as a minor can complement anything, and you can still get a job in any field you want, and Appalachian Studies can be a part of that major.
I wanted to, how did Appalachia first come to the attention of the nation? The reason I ask this is I've read a bunch of books from. We have great authors here in Appalachia. I'll tell you, and they're so good. I read The Coal Tattoo, which is Silas House, of course. I read last night. I finished The Letters by Amy Green, I think it was. And I've been reading since I've been out. I've been here since 2002. I've been reading books that are by authors in the area, and of course we have the new BFA program, which is creative writing, that Darnell Arnault leads. But it seems to me that somehow the Appalachian Regional Commission was formed, and issues and matters concerning Appalachia region came to national attention at some point.
Well, that was the 1960s. 100 years earlier, during the Civil War, is when people first started to notice there was something unique about the people of Appalachia and the region of Appalachia, and particularly after the war. When the war is over, there is a very real desire among some northern philanthropies and churches to find some way to minister to different areas, and one of the places they look is Appalachia, and they established missions in Appalachia, and in order to increase the funding to those missions, they portray an image of Appalachians as basically Protestant, basically loyal during the Civil War, which they were, and having been sort of just bypassed by time. And that image that the missions project is one way, but the greater way people start to see Appalachia is through a series of books that appeared the last part of the 19th century called color writers. The color writers worked off of a formula, and this is a time when Americans are looking for a lot of cheap, easy reads. And a lot of color writers chose Appalachia, and they always had certain formulas in place, and some of the stereotypes that we associate with Appalachia became entrenched in these many, many books that came out, and always had the same stock characters, always had the same sort of generalized plot, and always had the same sort of resolution to the storyline. The Trail of the Lonesome Pine by John Fox is probably the first or one of the earliest, and one of the best examples of that type of writing.
I see. Yeah, I remember that little fictional book.
Yeah, they always had a beautiful lady who needed to be saved.
Always. Yeah.
There was the violent, ignorant, backwoods kind of guy, and then they had these Yankees, for lack of a better term, who would come in and be the savior.
And he would always see that beautiful young lady who was somehow different than everybody else in the town. She had something there worth saving, something there that made her special, and she would usually end up leaving Appalachia and going somewhere else to be successful with the wealthy businessman.
You know, Appalachia came to mind. Of course, I'm formally educated in the northeast, but now the other day I was thinking about how old I am, and I thought, well, I've been in the South more than I've been in the North. So does that make me officially, I have de-Yankified? Or have I still have the, what I was going to say was, I remember in high school, I believe it was, you all don't remember, you all around this table are too young to remember Hubert Humphrey, but he had this study on it was I believe it was called Poverty in America. And I remember there was a big chunk in there about Appalachian poverty, and then it was called a War on Poverty. I believe that's what it was. Yeah, big chunk about.
Well, that was actually leads us into Kennedy's campaign in 1960 was the one where he first saw some of the poverty in Appalachia and promised to do something about it. Of course, he didn't live long enough to do that, but LBJ. Johnson, when he becomes president, he takes Kennedy's ideas and launches his famous War on Poverty. But it was really Appalachia that was the target, or maybe I should at least say the poster child of the poverty in America. And that was one of the places they went after, was poverty in Appalachia.
Do either of you happen to know what the ARC or I want to talk about the TVA in a minute, but what does the ARC do? The Appalachian Regional Commission. Do we know what their theme is or mission?
Yes, we do. We just happen to have a list right here. The Appalachian Regional Commission funds projects that address 4 basic goals identified by the commissioners, and the commissioners are the governors of those 13 states.
Gotcha.
And those goals are to increase job opportunities and per capita income in Appalachia, to reach parity with the nation. The second is to strengthen the capacity of the people in Appalachia to compete in the global economy. Third, develop and improve Appalachia's infrastructure to make the region economically competitive. And finally, build the Appalachian Development Highway System to reduce Appalachia's isolation, or at least perceived isolation. And all those things, the Appalachian Regional Commission has had some, I would say, qualified success. The roads are better. There's a lot of very real progress that you can point to in Appalachia. Poverty rate has gone down, or been improved rather dramatically.
Now, Gary Daniels, you've been around this area for a while. What do you have to say?
I have a question about the War on Poverty. Charles Kuralt in the early 1960s had a special on CBS that brought a lot of attention, but it also made Appalachian folks feel a little demeaned. Can you speak on that?
Well, isn't that generally the way it is, though, when someone from the outside tries to come in and say, here I am, I'm going to help you and save you? Yeah. The people that are being helped and saved sometimes are not always of the same opinion that they need to be helped and saved. I think Appalachians have that attitude that quite frankly, when you think about how they compare in terms of poverty with the rest of the nation, yes, they're probably below the national average, but they're not necessarily below the average for the region, which means that they're doing as well as anyone else around here, and not really necessarily that much worse than anywhere else. But the roads are good. Needed better roads. There were some definite advantages that came out of the so-called war on poverty.
Well, there's the idea of electrification in the area, the lack of medical. There was a bunch of things I think that the war on poverty did focus the national attention upon. Jesse?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to touch on what he's talking about is this special Christmas in Appalachia. And one of the things that was so demeaning about it was not that we're helping this region, but look how pitiful these people are.
I see.
It's like, isn't this sad? I mean, I guess a modern day equivalent would be like these, when you see like Feed the Children episodes or commercials, they don't show the like nice looking people. They show the kids who are destitute.
But you know, Appalachia's always had that problem.
Oh, sure.
Don't you think, Dr. Gilly, that
that
it's been the last place that it's okay to stereotype, and they do. I mean, there's so many TV shows now. Of course, the most famous is the Beverly Hillbillies, but since then there's been a half dozen or more shows on television that take that Appalachian stereotype, and that seems to be okay for some reason.
Even Andy Griffith, which is one of the most wholesome shows there, they had their family, played by Denver Pyle, and
the Darling family.
And they didn't live in town. They lived way back in the hollers. And they were potentially violent. And there again, you had the pretty daughters.
And the superstitions that they all believed in. The superstitions.
Why don't we hold this thought? Because I want to come back to some of these stereotypes. But, you know, Andy, Mount Pilot was really Raleigh, North Carolina. I hope you know that. They took off from Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back in a few minutes. We'll take a short break. Thank you.
On Wednesday evenings, you can tune your radio to WLMU and hear the best blues in the tri-state area with your host, Gary Daniels. He'll be playing the best blues artists of today and the best blues artists of yesteryear. Everything from Robert Johnson, Buddy Guy, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Muddy Waters, and many more. It's Wednesday Evening Blues from 9 to 11, right here on 91.3 WLMU.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
Join me, Tyler Rowlett, every Friday afternoon from 2 to 6 on 91.3 The Gap as I bring you the Friday Afternoon Jam. It's the best alternative rock and jam bands from the 90s to today. I'm playing everything from Pearl Jam to Fish, Newfound Glory to the Black Crowes. It's a little bit grunge and a little bit groove. There's something for everyone on the Friday Afternoon Jam, right here on 91.3 WLMU FM.
Every single one of his medical bills, everything is just all taken care of.
We have phenomenal research, outstanding clinical care, and the generosity of public, which allow us to treat patients regardless of what it takes.
At St. Jude, families never receive a bill for treatment, travel, housing, or food, because the only thing a family should worry about is helping their child live.
Because of you.
Gracias a ti. Because of you.
There is St. Jude.
Hello, everybody. Back to you. This is Martin Sellers, the Dean of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. We're continuing our segment on the Appalachian region and Appalachian studies and geography. and I'm lucky to have with us two guests, three really. We count Gary Daniels always as a guest, Dr. Michael Toomey, who's Director of Appalachian Studies and also Assistant Dean of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. And if you were listening earlier, you see why he's the Assistant Dean. He ought to be the Dean. The guy is so smart over here. And then Dr. Jesse Gilley, who's, we have a lot of Gullies around here too, Jesse. Dr. Jesse Gilley, Director of Geography Program, bringing us some insight into the area that we're in. But let me stop for a moment for our support statement.
Support for this program is made possible by Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate, Tennessee. Further information on academics, campus life, athletics, educational programs, admissions, and financial aid, and very much more, you can find at www.lmunet.edu.
We've been talking while on break a little bit about stereotypes, and I think this ought to be brought out on the table a little bit. Can either of you gentlemen give us a sense of where stereotypes like this come from? The person with the mud boots and no shirt, or however it might, the poverty-stricken, the making of gin up in the mountains and so on. Where does that? How does that come about? Why do we do that? Why does that happen?
Well, we talked about the color writers, and of course that's where the stereotypes have their most obvious origin. But I guess you're really asking, if I'm hearing you right, is why do these stereotypes persist?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that, I think, is a tougher question to answer. Some people have suggested the Appalachians themselves, or some parts of Appalachians at least, will pursue that stereotype for whatever reason, because there's more than one part of Appalachia. There's the valley and there's the mountains. And it has been suggested by some that the residents of the valley themselves would be the ones to look to as to why those stereotypes about mountain Appalachians are persisting.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Gilley, do you have any ideas?
Well, there's a lot of research, social geography and sociology about identity.
Mm-hmm.
And one way of making an identity or forming an identity of your place is what place is not you. So in geography we talk about geographical imagination. Mm-hmm. And it's a way of pointing out who is different from you, and it makes you feel better. Like, I'm not a hick, I don't live on top of a mountain, I'm not dirty. And you start to form these images of other people. And then if you live in Appalachia, they had the same entertainment that other people had, local color writing and then TV shows later on. So we draw on that, me being somebody who was raised with the middle class identity, and I could tell you where lots of people lived that fit stereotypes. Mm-hmm. We had a place in our county in the western part, when we played them in football, they seemed to be in 8th grade, they seemed to be 6 foot tall and had beards and
left back 10 times and all that.
And that was just our imagination filling in gaps.
Mm-hmm. So how does either of you or both of you, how does Appalachian Studies help us to if in fact overcoming stereotypes is a good thing, and I tend to think in this case it probably is, how does Appalachian Studies help us to do that?
Well, as with most stereotypes, there's always some sort of a kernel of truth there somewhere, or some reason for the stereotype to start. And this isolation is a good example. Many of the missions wanted Appalachians to be isolated. That way they could justify a whole host of things. And so the perception of Appalachians being bypassed by history, or that modern life has just gone around them and somehow left them alone on an island, that image is one that was created for their own purposes. But there is also the fact that it is tough to get in and out of Appalachia, some regions more so than others. And that doesn't mean Appalachians are isolated, though. They're perfectly aware of what's going on, of trends, of songs and music and popular culture and news and politics and everything. But it also means that getting in and out sometimes puts you into a barter economy situation where that's better than going someplace to buy something. There is a kernel of truth to that isolation myth, but at the same time, Appalachian is very much a part of the world around us. And so to get back to your question, Appalachian Studies helps us to see that yes, there are some reasons why these stereotypes started, but most of them really don't hold up under careful scrutiny.
I see. Dr. Gilly, anything on that? Or
it just shows you the complexity of things. There's a lot of times there's not just one answer to stereotypes. It helps you to answer those tough questions. And also it helps you to look at yourself and how you see others and kind of examine where you're coming from and learn from others.
Let me ask you both this. We're in a time of exponential growth of communications, media, and travel. And doesn't that in some way, those facts, doesn't that somehow tend to broaden the reality of the Appalachia people, the beauty of their open hearts, their craftsmanship, their qualities, to the rest of the country? And so do you see a change coming, or how do you feel about that?
One of the places that would touch right on what you're talking about, I think, is tourism. The Appalachian economy has long been plagued by sort of a colonialism. That is to say, the people that own the businesses are not Appalachians. They live somewhere else. And so the people that work at what business there is in Appalachia work for wages, and the profits go north or somewhere else. Tourism is the exception in many cases, because you can encourage folks to come visit Appalachia for the parks, for the waterfalls, even for the amusement parks, and for anything else. And those tend to be a little more homegrown. And there's an advantage there, economic advantage. So tourism is one way to get at that.
Where I grew up in West Virginia, there's ATV trails that attract people, and it blows my mind that people travel from halfway across the country to go there.
Yeah, when you get known for something, then you attract.
But it's beautiful country, and it's regulated, so they're not out tearing up the environment. They're out on marked trails, and so it's kind of a neat tourist economy.
Well, I've been here since, like, say, 2002, and this has got to be one of the most beautiful places in the world, and there's no doubt about it. Now, being a beautiful place doesn't mean that the people are wonderful, but as far as I can tell, and I grew up in the North, I mean, as far as I can tell, when I have visitors come down from the North, and I think of them as fresh Northerners, because they don't know anything. See, I've been around enough to not be a fresh Northerner, and they come down and we go we're out here in the trails and so on, and people are people wherever you are, but those stereotypes tend to cause, anytime there's a lack of information, or it causes fears in the unknown and that sort of thing, and I think that engenders the kinds of things we're talking about. And which, by the way, I want to mention the Beverly Hillbillies. I think they're from Speedwell initially, because I think there's a house down the road that I'm pretty sure they were from Speedwell. Let me ask you, Dr. Gilly, I want to talk about geography, but before we go there, before the program ends, I'm going to ask a few questions about some things that happened in the Appalachian region, like mountaintop removal. I want to talk about that in a minute. But you're here, you have a handle on the geography program. What is the geography major all about? What are we doing for students in that regard? How is it helping folks that come to LMU and take a minor? We have a minor in geography, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
We do not have a major. Can you talk about geography a little bit to us?
Well, one of the great things about geography, like Appalachian Studies, a geography minor can really complement whatever you're doing, because everything has a spatial component to it. So geography helps complement that. I teach environmental geography. I'm about to teach geographies of health class, and just two broad areas that we focus on here at LMU, health and environment, and just to explore how place affects how people live.
Well, let's go into that a little bit. This is fascinating, I think. Geography of health. Now, you have to tell me what that means. I mean, this is amazing to me.
Well, it's a very broad subject, but just to put it in a nutshell, where people live and where they work affects their health, whether it's the economy or if you think about, at a global scale, there's different countries that have much poorer conditions. Their health varies greatly. Their life expectancies are lower. Also, there's looking at diseases that travel. Right now, there's a Zika crisis. Mm-hmm. Globalization is a big part of that because people are traveling rather easily. So
when I think of some of the things I've read about our area here in the Appalachian region, some of the health issues that jump out of the pages I read, journals I read, things like higher rates of higher rates of colon, diabetes, heart ailments, tooth decay, the overextensive use of opioids and so on. Does the fact that we live in this region somehow engender that, or is it something else that's going on?
Some of those are problems everywhere. I mean, there's drug problems in suburbs of big cities, but each place has its own different nuances on what's going on. And that is important to not just lump all of it together to see what's going on. Some of it's because people are poor, but it's certainly it's a health crisis.
What about health care in this area?
Yeah, that's another important subject in geographies of health. Access to health. If you kind of know this intuitively, I think, that if you have a major medical crisis and you're near a hospital, you're going to fare better. If you live near a major medical hospital, you might fare even better.
I told my wife, I live up in Speedway, I told her if I have a heart attack, don't call the ER because the EMT, they're not going to make it out there. It takes them 40 minutes to get there. Just get the dog to come over and sit next to me for a while and give me one last can of the garbanzo beans that she makes very well. No, all kidding aside, it is a very serious subject. You're right that we don't have, and I think Dr. DeBusk and the DeBusk School of Osteopathic Medicine, as well as our nursing program here led by Marianne Moderson, the PA program. These are essential for our area, and we thank God that they are expanding and developing here and putting people who know how to care out in the areas, the hollers and the mountains and the areas where we need them the most. Let me go back to the major and the minor. In geography, we do not have a major in geography, and now you and I have talked about this, Dr. Gilley, that we should have one. I've been bent on this since I've been here. We can't get it done right now. It's things Dr. Burchett usually says he's of the crawl, walk, and run group, theory, and I agree with that. If we had a major in geography. And I really do think at some point we will. If we major in geography, how can that help our students? What kinds of jobs would they get from it? What would that help them to do if they live in the Appalachian region? Help them to understand better. I mean, could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Well, some of the things that are very attractive to employers. There's environmental aspect of geography. I have classmates with bachelor's degrees who've focused on environmental issues, and they go and they work for regulatory agencies who check compliance and also they help clean up environmentally dirty places. There's also geographical information systems, which is still an up-and-coming career, and making interactive maps that you take data in every field, whether it's business or health, or anything really has data that can be mapped and to see what's gone on in the past and to predict the future.
Mm-hmm.
So, those are very up and coming skills.
Mm-hmm. And certainly combining that, as Dr. Toomey was mentioning earlier, a minor in Appalachian Studies, a minor in geography can certainly enhance someone going into business. I mean, if you think about the traditional businesses that are regional, they can be able to grasp the cultures in different environments, different states. We're right here in the heart of a tri-state area, as you know. As I say, I jogged up to the tri-state peak yesterday. Going up was easy. Coming down was hard. For some reason, I don't know why, but we're right here in the nexus of about 10 or 12 counties, and certainly understanding the area and its what the needs are, economically speaking, can certainly only help businesses in our area. How has tell us a little bit about, Dr. Gilly, your research that you're doing and how that may aid us here in the Appalachian region. What are you doing now in terms of scholarship?
Well, my research is, we talked about stereotypes, and my research has focused not on dispelling particular stereotypes, but I'd like to focus on how Appalachians, and particularly Southern West Virginians, in the case of my research, have been modern throughout history. So I looked at road development, and roads 100 years ago were terrible, and if you just look at the roads itself, you would think that, well, this is a terrible region and they're backwards. Mm-hmm. But when you read what people were saying, the people that lived there thought they were bad too. They thought that they deserved better than to have these twisty, podunk, unsafe roads. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of hope in roads. Even in the 1920s and the 1930s, there was hope that that roads would improve economies, create tourism jobs, diversify the economies. And there was also this idea that they were connected. They weren't backwards. They were the highway that my research centers around was a tourist highway that started in the 1920s called the Great Lakes to Florida Highway. And they were connecting the wealthy industrialist in the north to the beaches in Florida, which, because of the automobile, they were able to do that. So they saw dollar signs. They saw themselves as connected, not backwards and isolated. So I like to bring that aspect. There's a lot of study on coal wars from that time period, and I just wanted to show that there were people who weren't bent on violence and moonshining, and they were trying to make the state and the region better.
I see. Do you have any idea why they won't fill the pothole out in front of my house? I just need to know. I mean, that pothole been there for years. I can't get. I'm teasing you, Dr. Gilly. Your study is certainly providential, important, and an exciting one, as we talked about when you first came here to LMU a number of years ago. We don't have a whole lot of time left, but I wanted to hit on a couple of subjects that I think, when having lived here a while, have certainly exacerbated my questioning about how things are done anywhere. This issue about mountaintop removal or strip mining is, I think, a horrendous thing in so many ways. You've read the documentation about it. You've all, both Gary, you've seen the outcomes of it. I mean, there's horrible things in so many so many places, from anything from chemicals that go into the ground, from now we're doing hydraulic fracturing to land masses being obliterated, and all that comes from that. What are your thoughts on how to remove resources that we need? Of course, now coal has been declining a little bit, more than a little bit in recent few years with the growth of being able to find more oil in lots of places, but we don't want to become dependent upon oil again. What thoughts do you all have on this idea about mountaintop removal and so on?
Well, it's been an issue for a long time when there was strip mining, and now it's much bigger scale where they have huge machines that can just totally take the top of the mountain off. Now, where I'm a geographer, I look at it from the issue of place, and there are a lot of people that live around there. They're concerned about jobs, so that's one side of it. But also there are people who are concerned about their streams being polluted, their water being polluted, the area looking different. So, it's very complex. It's not something that's talked around the table like polite conversation. So,
I was expecting you to answer the problem right here on this show, but that's okay. No, I appreciate and having read a little bit about it, the persistent problems that come from this matter of extraction and just debilitating consequences from it. And we're not sure about hydraulic fracturing yet. We're not even sure about how expansive that matter will be in terms of industry, transport, recovery, treatment, recycling, disposition of spent fluids and so on. These are issues I can't even think of that are beyond me. But it just strikes me too. And the other issue I think that also comes to mind are the social conditions and the health issues which we talked about. And a lot of these things seem to be integrated like fingers clasping on a hand, that we can't seem to find. What's that old thing about that old game where one of those moles pops up and you hit it on the head with a hammer and another one pops up? It's sort of like that. But, the stereotypes aside, the people that I know here are strong. They're very confident in themselves. We have great students here. I want to say this too, and you all know this, that we have a lot of first-generation students who've never had parents or uncles or aunts went to college, come to LMU, and probably a bit more percentage-wise than a lot of the colleges around our area. These are great students. They have been given an opportunity here at LMU to be successful, and I think that's what's going to drive change, if change is needed, is the success of the students who are right here in the Appalachian region. They're going to find pathways to success, and that's what LMU is all about. I hope you would agree. Do either of you have one last thing you want to mention? Anything, Dr. Gilley, Dr. Toomey?
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I want to thank both of you, experts in your fields, for being here. And this is Dr. Martin Sellers, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. Our segment today, Appalachian Studies, Geography. And I appreciate both of you being here. And Gary, as always, engineer and producer, appreciate you being here. And I just want to mention that this afternoon's program was produced by Gary Daniels. Our student studio production assistant is John Hobbs. Our program director is Clay Stanifer. Broadcast engineer is Don Berggraf. Our executive producer is Tony Spinoza. Our theme music is White Horses, as performed by Tierra Negra and Muriel Anderson. American Culture, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences at Lincoln Memorial University will rebroadcast again this Saturday at 10 a.m., Sunday at 8 p.m., and next Tuesday at 7 a.m. This has been a WLMU radio production, 91.3 The Gap.
Support for this program is made possible by Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate, Tennessee. Further information on academics, campus life, athletics, educational programs, admissions, and financial aid, www.lmunet.edu.